It's, in my case too, I think growing up, you know, my son always watched me, you know, in these really hyper heterosexual situations where I was always playing some sport and, you know, with the fellas and, you know, hollering at the girls and stuff like that. And I think that even though he knew that, like, politically I was always very vocal in favor of gay marriage, and that we had family friends that were gay couples, I really think he still felt nervous telling me, because I honestly felt like he was worried he was disappointing me somehow. He told me in the kitchen after school one day, and it was hard for him, and when he started to tell me, I knew what he was going to tell me. And in that moment I felt really good that I could be positive for him, because I knew that a lot of fathers weren't doing that. And you know, I gave him a huge hug, and I told him that, you know, I'm like, I love you, I thank you for telling me that, and the only thing that I want to tell you is that when I look at my son, I look at the best son that I could possibly ask for. When I think of you as the best older brother to your younger brother, which is just, you can't deny. He's the most amazing older brother to his little brother. I said, you're an incredible student. You have a voice of an angel. You can sing, you know, amazingly. My point is that you're a million things, and your sexuality is one of those things. My son wanted me to tell them, so I made the trip out. They live in Rhode Island, and I was the one that told them, and, you know, my mother started crying, and, like, I was actually kind of furious with them. I mean, it was probably the time in my life that I was the most disappointed and upset with my parents. And, you know, they're Fox Newsies. You know, they watch Fox News every night, and you know, they've worked around it, because it was right around Easter when I told them, and we were all planning to make the trip, including my ex, who comes to, like, all of our, you know, family things. And I called my mom. I said, you know, we're not coming. And she said, why not? I said, because I can't have you feel any differently about your grandson than you did the day before I told you that he was gay. I can't understand that the day before he was, like, your favorite, you know? I mean, he was the one you were like, oh, always bragging up this boy. And he's the same kid. And and I was serious. I'm like, we're not coming. Like, I don't need that. I don't want that around me or my son. And so they called me a few days later, and they said, well, we'll manage it. And they, you know, they've managed it, but every now and then, you know, they'll let me know that they still don't, you know, they're still disappointed by it somehow.
Well, as long as you're not, I think, speaking as a gay man to you, as long as you're not, it's not going to matter.
My ex and I had talked about it before. You know, we thought that was a very strong possibility. But, you know, again, he's just a wonderful kid.
Right.
Like, he's awesome. And he tried. When he was little, I think he wanted so badly to try to, you know, do things he thought would make me happy, which is, you know, I tried to do that for my parents, and look where that got me, you know. So it was a good lesson. He tried desperately to play Little League baseball, and he was so bad. And I kept saying, are you sure that you want to play? And I was the coach. And I have to tell you this because it was just such it was a moment. He was actually getting, you know, pretty proficient at baseball at one point, and I was coaching. He was at bat, and I was the first base coach. And this kid for the other team was pitching, and, you know, in Little League, the distance between, like, the mound and home plate is like 2 feet. And if you throw like 60 miles an hour, it's like 90 miles an hour, you know, because it only has to travel this far. And this kid that was pitching was a monster. I mean, they don't do, like, age testing or anything, but I was like, is this kid like 25? Like, I was looking at him, and I'm like, really? Like, this kid, he was like 3 times the size of me. And he had he could throw the ball like 100 miles an hour, and I was fearful of to begin with. Besides which, he had absolutely no control. I mean, one pitch was up on the backstop, one was down in the dirt, and I'm thinking, this is not a good situation. Sure enough, Will gets up to bat, and this kid throws this pitch. I see it come out of his hand, and I knew as the ball was traveling in that like millisecond that he was going to get hit. Not only did he get hit by the pitch, but he got hit square in the face. And like dropped to his knees and like had his hands like this, and it was just pouring blood down onto the ground. And at that moment, as a father, I was crushed, because I thought, oh my God, I have failed in like the biggest way that I could ever imagine. Like, I failed. This is terrible. And at that point, he knew he wanted to be a singer too. So all I'm thinking is, oh my God, this kid's broke his nose. And so I'm in the ambulance with him, and I had to call his mother, and it was just terrible. And you know, from that point on, he never played another sport.
Like, I'm all done with this.
He was all set, and I was like, I'm all set. Like, you don't have to ever do anything to please me, but like, be you,
right.
You know. And since then, he's like done all these amazing vocal performances, and like every time that I see one, I just can't believe that's my son, and I'll just start crying. Like, it's waterworks every time that he sings. Every time. It's so hard for me to answer that, because honest to God, from the time that I was a little kid, I never saw the problem with it. Like, I never understood what the issue was, ever. Like, and it was with everything. Like, even when I was a little boy, like, I loved everybody. Like, I was a kid in class who was just like, I just wanted to meet everybody and spend time with them. And, you know, differences, you know, made me only more curious, you know, and more interested in that person. And so I don't understand it. I wish that I could, you know, I could theorize, but, you know, I don't get it. Like, I can't understand how another human being would have an issue with two people loving each other ever. Like, I just don't get it. Like, especially when we talked all about like money and all that. And really, the best thing that we have in our lives is love. And, you know, any kind of prohibition of that is I think, you know, the greatest crime against humanity. Because if you're lucky enough to have love, find it, you should, you know, it should be celebrated and protected. You know, it shouldn't be